Hi, I'm Todd Howe. Welcome to NewFilmmakers LA in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. I'm here with Bob Ostertag, director of Thanks to Hank. We're going to watch a little clip of Thanks to Hank.
But you couldn't help but see how sincere he was. Yes, he was scattered, but that's what he preferred. He liked that. He liked to multitask, and he liked to be right there. He didn't like to be removed. At the same time, he was a very modest person, very modest person. And I can't say that for a lot of people, particularly myself. He was totally down with gay liberation and a little bit turned off to what was even then a gay establishment. People were a little nervous about confrontation, and that was the other ability that Hank had. He encouraged that. He was inspired by that, and he knew if you were too nice about things, they weren't going to happen.
So Bob, could you just talk a little bit about Thanks to Hank and what it's about? And then I'll ask you a lot of questions.
Well, Thanks to Hank is about Hank Wilson. And I always find it difficult to summarize Hank Wilson. Mm-hmm. A man with a huge heart, and a man who walked the walk, mm-hmm. and not just talked the talk. He was sort of the Johnny Appleseed of gay liberation in San Francisco. He founded more than 20 organizations, many of which are still with us. LGBT Film Festival in San Francisco, which is the longest running queer film festival in the world, was started by Hank with projecting films on bed sheets pushed pinned to the walls.
And that's where you had a world premiere there.
Yes, and we had the world premiere of the film back at the festival. He started the first gay teachers union in the United States, the first gay democratic club, the first gay self-defense organization, the first gay comedy club. The list of firsts goes on and on. But that doesn't really tell the story, because more than an activist, he was sort of this very kind of almost saint-like figure who slept on the floor, owned nothing.
He's referred to at times and very fondly as Saint Hank. And there's a flippancy with which you can just fob that off. But when you get to the end of Thanks to Hank, you really do truly understand why this man was referred to as Saint Hank.
You know, Hank went to extraordinary lengths to not get credit for the work that he did. He was not about accolades. Even his closest friends sometimes found it odd, mm-hmm. you know, like, because it wasn't an act. Yeah. It wasn't something he was pushing himself to do. Towards the end of the movie, there's an interview with two Christian ministers who had known him for a long time, and they discuss whether they think he's a saint, and they come to the conclusion that he is. And they also talk about how it wasn't an effort mm-hmm. for him. The way they put it in the interview is he wasn't a saint because he was trying to be a saint. It was just who he was. For 20 years, Hank ran a 150-room derelict SRO hotel in the Skid Row part of San Francisco as an unfunded, informal hospice for homeless people dying of AIDS. Many hundreds of people died in that hotel. And I don't think I could have worked there for a week. Mm-hmm. And Hank worked there for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And Hank only quit because he was so sick with AIDS that he couldn't continue.
There is obviously the human story of Hank, but there's also a very real history lesson. How important was it for you to tell that story?
The AIDS documentaries that we have are centered in the gay urban enclaves like the Castro. And you know, most of the epidemic was among poor people, and that story has not been told. It was very important for me that story be told. people don't remember that in the early days, people with AIDS were ostracized even in the gay community. You say the word gay and people think of two white guys in a convertible in an expensive neighborhood, Mm-hmm. And the fact that back in gay liberation days, gay meant the outliers, the radicals, and the people who were really, on the edge. And I think it's important for that story to be told. Also, that the early gay activists like Hank were people who, their vision of social justice was much broader than gay rights for gay people. Yeah. They were as concerned about class issues and poverty and racism as they were about rights for gay people.
Well, that speaks a hell of a lot about his awareness and his understanding at a human level in a much broader sense.
We like to think about ACT UP and marching in the street, and which all happened, but it all happened years later.
And it's something that I was never aware of, and that there would be a lack of solidarity within a community is facing so much adversity.
Well, we tell the story, so the comedy club that Hank started, the Valencia Rose, which is where Whoopi Goldberg got her start, Lea Delaria got her start, Alec Mapa got his start. Many, very well-known comedians came out of that club. In 1983, they hosted a Thanksgiving dinner for people with AIDS that had to be kept secret, even from the staff of the club, because they were worried that gay people would stop going to the club if they knew that club had served dinner to people with AIDS. That's, it's really not remembered. There's so much of the story I had to cut out because of length.
That's also interesting too. I mean, how do you do that with when everything is important?
So we cut out the fact that in the early days of AIDS, there were people who spent extra jail time because there was no place to release them to because they had AIDS. So even though their sentence was done, they couldn't leave jail. And Hank's Hotel was the only SRO hotel in San Francisco that would accept you if you were known to have HIV.
The resilience throughout this period is something that I find absolutely remarkable.
Well, as we document in the movie, when Hank started the first gay teachers union, they couldn't find a place to meet. Mm-hmm. They couldn't meet in a school. They couldn't meet any place else. They finally found a Quaker group that would give them a room to meet in. Mm-hmm. Gay teachers in San Francisco couldn't find a room to meet in.
It's unfathomable. Can you talk a little bit more about the animation? Because I absolutely loved it.
Well, the original idea of putting animation in the movie is we thought we weren't going to find much archival footage of Hank because Hank was notorious for weaseling his way off camera. Mm-hmm. He did not like his picture taken. He didn't want to be in he just didn't want attention, and he didn't want credit. That was not what he was put on this earth for.
It had a very 80s feel to it because that's how they did it in the 80s. And, I understand that with very grassroots filmmaking, do-it-yourself filmmaking, you did it the only way you knew how to do it, and that was by hand.
That's Jeremy Rourke, the animator, who's wonderful, wonderful animator. And when I saw the material, I said, that is perfect, because it's all made by hand. I said, so Jeremy, do you think we can make a feature film where there's no still photograph that we present as a digital still, where every single image we print on a piece of paper and you do your thing with? And he was fascinated by the idea. And it couldn't be technically simpler. We painted the desk green, like a green screen, so that we could key it out. And it's Jeremy with his scissors and his knife
You've done things creatively, which I think come from your musical background, which is Hank talking, pitch black. That's a really bold thing to do in film, and you chose to do it, and I think that came from your musical side.
Well, I should say the music in the film was all contributed for free by the Kronos Quartet, by the Tin Hat Trio, and by Carla Kihlstedt, all of whom gave me extensive pieces of their catalog and said, use whatever you want. And in a similar way, all the archival footage was donated, and all the still photography was donated. So if the film is compelling, a lot of that is because there was a lot of people who contributed for free to the movie. And so having the music of the Tin Hat Trio, Carla Kihlstedt, and the Kronos Quartet to work with the animation was really a delight for me. The joke was that Hank wouldn't have wanted this movie to be made about him, and he definitely would not have wanted a lot of money spent on a movie made about him. So I kind of had him on my shoulder telling me in my ear not to spend money. So so we tried to do it as cheaply as we could. So animation made on a little desk with a knife and scissors is pretty cheap.
Is this the only film you're ever going to make?
Probably, yeah. I just wanted to tell this story. I wanted Hank not to be forgotten. Life is short. I write books. I compose music. I like to get out and paddle my kayak far away from people.
You've made a film that's had an incredibly profound impact on me, something that will resonate deeply with a lot more people. And if it is the only film that you ever make, you've made an amazing one.
Thank you. I had a compelling subject matter. But thank you. I appreciate that.